Thank you so much for making a date on the marketplace today. Now, let's start it all. And local banks have intensified their push for a presidential intervention on the deadline for meeting the new capital requirement. This was after they met the president yesterday to press on their demands. Joy Business understands the meeting ended inconclusively but expected to continue today. We've captured some of the details of this particular meeting in the following report.
According to the local banks, they could fold up if the Bank of Ghana presses ahead with its plans that every bank must meet the minimum capital requirement by December 31 this year. They're also asking the president to ensure that government's indebtedness to the commercial banks are cleared, a development they believe has contributed to their current state, making it difficult to recapitalize before December 2018. These were some of the issues that came up during their engagement with the president yesterday. Figures from the Bank of Ghana show that stock of non-performing loans as at the end of December last year reached a little over 8 billion cedis. For the chair of Parliament's Finance Committee, Mark Asibe-Yeboah, he does not support arguments that there should be a different set of capital for local and foreign banks.
Banking is a serious business, and we are not going to get into a first-tier bank, European banks, Nigerian banks. If you want to do banking, there's a law that governs all banks. Says that your minimum capital, mind you, we are talking of minimum capitalization for 400 million. If you can't do 400 million, if there's savings and loan, occupy that space. There's microfinance, there's also community and rural banks.
Well, for some, it will be interesting to see how these engagements will end, especially when the Bank of Ghana has resolved to stand by its directive that every bank must meet the new capital requirement of 400 million cedis by December 31, 2018.
All right, so let's still stay on this development and get a reaction from economist Courage Marty, who works with Data Bank, to tell us what he thinks about this particular development. Courage, welcome to the marketplace. Now, if you have been following this current development, do you think that this meeting is long overdue or it is coming too late?
First of all, I also think that this is a matter that should be channeled to the appropriate quarters, which is the regulator, the Monetary Policy Committee, or the Monetary Policy Authorities, because this is something that was determined by the Bank of Ghana, the regulator for the sector. And so if you divert the consultations to the central government, it creates the impression that the central bank is not entirely independent as we want us to believe. So I think that, first of all, the consultation needs to be deepened towards the Bank of Ghana and not the central government. Having said that, I also think that when this decision was arrived at last year, the local banks had representation and they may have consulted and made their concerns known. After 1 year, it is important to go back to the regulator and make the regulator understand the state of affairs after 1 year and why it is difficult. Personally, I think that 4 years to meet 400 million cedis is a bit too much, because 4 years ago, when the central bank asked banks to recapitalize 120 million cedis, the dollar equivalent was 90 million US dollars. Today, the same dollar equivalent, given the current exchange rate, is still at $90 million. So in dollar terms, 400 million cedis has not increased the dollar cover or the dollar equivalent of the increase. So what the central bank is only doing is replacing eroded capital. So if you want 4 extra years to achieve that 400 million cedis, by that time you will not have $90 million. You have less than $90 million, and you will still not have recapitalized to the level that would give sufficient confidence to investors on the market. So I think that the consultations, while necessary, I personally believe that 4 years is a bit too far, and also it should be directed to the central bank and not the central government.
Well, now they are appealing to the president. Do you think if the president should heed to their call, it will amount to some interference in the work of the regulator at the Bank of Ghana?
Yes, and precisely. Hello? Hello?
Hello, I can hear you right there.
Yeah, and precisely my point that if you have the president or the government interfering to a certain extent, then you are going to get investors to believe that the central bank is not free or independent of the government after all. So at this stage, I think all the president or the government can do is to take their plea and forward it to the central bank for consideration. But that is all it will end at, and not to coerce the central bank to, to do what the government would have wished that is done, because the regulator sees what is happening in the sector deeper than even the government themselves would have seen.
Now, lastly, before you go, do you support the view that there should be two different kinds of minimum requirements, one for the indigenous banks and then the other for foreign banks? What's your view on that?
No, I wouldn't support that view, because first of all, in the financial sector or in the banking case, we have levels of operators. We have the commercial banks or universal banks, we have the savings and loans, and we have the microfinance. And these are tiered on the basis of capital requirements. So it depends on what capital you have and where you can fall into. Having said that, I also think that as a bank also, or in the banking sector, beyond the minimum capital requirements, we are also likely to have what we call the economic or risk-adjusted capital requirements. And we are not there yet. So if we are struggling to raise the minimum capital requirements, we will most likely struggle to raise the risk-adjusted or economic capital requirements.
All right. Thank you so much, Courage Marty, for your time. That was economist Courage Marty from Data Bank. He's been sharing his thoughts on the decision by indigenous local banks to appeal to the president to actually intervene in the payment of the minimum capital requirement, as well as address other issues pertaining to the industry. Let's move on still in the banking industry. And the general manager of GN Bank, Issa Adam, believes the introduction of the Ghana reference rate could go a long way to reduce the cost of credit in the banking sector. The central bank introduced this rate in its quest to help reduce interest rates by commercial banks. Speaking to Joy Business, Issa Adam said the new model will not only liberalize the financial market, but also heighten competition.
Reference rate is a good thing. That is even going to make it more competitive. Now we all have the same rate. Then you add whatever your premium is. Once we are operating in a free market economy, if you put in very high risk premium, then you may not get customers to take loans. I know that banks, we depend on loans for our income. One of our basic incomes is from loans, interest on loans. So if you are not able to come up with something which is acceptable to customers, then you might price yourself out of the market, and that will create problems for you in meeting your bottom line. To bring down the cost of credit to some level, but not what people are expecting. Currently, they've come up with is it 16.8 or so, and so premium, if it's 10%, and that it's not going to be uniform for all sectors of the economy. The risk involved in giving loans to the commercial, call it trading entities, is not the same as giving it to manufacturing companies, and it's not the same as giving it to, call it companies that are engaged in construction.
It's so live on the marketplace. Now moving on, the 2017 semi-annual report by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, has revealed that 50% of all projects funded by oil money were non-existent. Chairman of the committee, Dr. Steve Mantiao, in a press conference, said the Auditor General's Department will have to open investigations into this development and take the necessary actions where needed.
In 2016, following the initial inspection of the North, PIAC wrote to the Ministry of Finance for explanation on the non-existent projects. The letter was dated 4th August 2016. As we speak, the letter is yet to be acknowledged, let alone acted upon. We are therefore compelled to compile a list of these ghost projects and refer them to the Auditor General for further investigation. Should any wrongdoing be established, PIAC will ensure the trigger of the necessary prosecutorial processes to forestall their reoccurrence.
Meanwhile, PIAC has also observed that various ministries of finance over the years have not complied with recommendations on the status of implementation of oil-funded projects as required by law. Dr. Mantiao is therefore calling on the Finance Committee of Parliament to consider inviting members of the PIAC for more clarity and further questioning on these current revelations.
The committee has observed that the ministers of finance over the years not complied with the provision of updates on the status of implementation of oil-funded projects as required by Section 48(2)(b, which states that the minister shall actually submit a reconciliation report of the petroleum revenues, and the report shall describe the stage of completion of the programmed activities funded by and the expenditures incurred on the activities covered by the annual budget funding amount in the financial year of the report. PIAC is of the view that the thin spread of the ABFA funds over hundreds of projects across the country has made compliance with this provision difficult. Recommendations. As a result of these findings and observations, the committee would like to prefer the following recommendations. 1. Payment to contractors for certified work done should be made promptly to forestall cost overruns and ensure value for money. This said, contracts for the execution of projects and any associated variation orders should be awarded only after it is certain that the funds needed to complete the projects will be available. 2. The selection of projects to be executed in the districts should be aligned with the Assembly's medium-term development plans.
And yet in another development, Dr. Mantiao has assured PIAC will not be overwhelmed by the significant revenue inflows of oil money with the coming on stream of the Sankofa Jinyami oil and gas field in the western region. PIAC has persistently called for more resources in the past to be able to go around the country to carry out its monitoring activities. It was assumed that with the addition of Ghana's new hydrocarbon development, the oversight body may find it more difficult to account for the huge inflows of resources. But Dr. Mantiao said PIAC is ready to perform.
Sankofa is not the only project. We even have other projects. Hess Petroleum is now at the development phase. And so by next year, we also expect that they also come on stream. We don't distinguish between the petroleum revenues. Of course, when we are reporting, we'll report on project-by-project basis. But in terms of how the revenues, we do not monitor to say the Jubilee money was used for this and the 10 project money was used for that. We put all of them together and call them petroleum revenues, which accrue to the annual budget funding amount. And this is what we report to Ghanaians. So the same principle we adopt in reporting on revenues from Jubilee, 10 and the rest are what we are going to apply to Sankofa Jinyami. It will be part of the revenue streams flowing into the annual budget funding amount, the ABFA.
Thank you very much for staying on the marketplace and welcome back. Now, the British High Commission, in collaboration with the Scotland Development International, SDI, is leading a 22 delegation or member delegation of investors aiming to explore business opportunities in Ghana's oil and gas sector. The aim is to take advantage of technical and human resource opportunities in the country's oil and gas value chain. Now, in the studio with me here is Andrew Monaghan, Regional Manager, Africa, SDI. Andrew Campbell is also International Development Expert, and Dr. Paul Eke, Executive Director of SDI. They're going to tell me about what sort of opportunities they find interesting in Ghana's oil and gas value chain and what more for them. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
You are Andrew Campbell.
I'm Andrew Monaghan.
Right.
We've got two Andrews for you today.
Sure, so Andrew and Andrew
yes,
Campbell.
Yes.
All right, so first tell me, what have you seen so interesting with oil and gas in Ghana?
Well, I've been here since September. I'm based here for a couple of years. I'm the second incumbent of the post of regional manager here. And we came down here because of the growing strength of your oil and gas industry generally. From your first oil that you got in December 2010, your industry has grown consistently and impressively. Ghana has got many advantages, perhaps over some of its regional neighbours, its stability, its economic growth, its ease of doing business. So all of those factors propelled us here.
Okay. Now, Andy, what specific areas within the value chain do you hope to explore opportunities in?
Well, I'm representing Forth Valley College. We are Scotland's leading vocational training organisation. And what's attracted me to Ghana is their, without a doubt, the growth in oil and gas, but also their commitment to developing the workforce through the different local content policies they have. So it's my aim to try and enhance and increase the level of technical education available to young Ghanaians.
I'm interested, you mentioned local content, because that has been a thorny issue since the development of Ghana's oil and gas. I mean, we have so many locals interested to fit in or to position themselves within the industry, but even though we have a local content law, you find some of these international oil companies, still insisting that people do not have the requisite experience. So when you join the industry here, what are you going to do to embrace more locals? Okay,
well, the model that I would like to come into Ghana with is very much a partnership and collaboration, working with local institutions to develop their portfolio of programs relevant for the oil and gas industry and other industries. Okay. So that's what I would like to do here in Ghana. There is a big opportunity at technical training. Operators, I think the message is that they can't get the skilled technical qualifications here in Ghana. That for me is a very easy change. Working collaboratively with Scottish institutions, particularly Forth Valley College, we would like to bring up the level of technical education available, broaden the scope and depth of technical vocational education available through Ghanaian institutions, and build the trust between operators, international operators coming into Ghana, and the institutions here in Ghana themselves. Yeah, that's impressive. Let me come to you, Dr. Paul Eke, you're Executive Director of PIP Prime. What is PIP Prime and what are you doing?
Okay, thank you so much. PIP Prime, we're into topside facilities, having these massive ski sets from the North Sea. Okay. We are looking at partnering with oil and gas companies in Ghana, as well as supporting to transfer these skills to Ghana indigenes in support of your local content. So we do a lot of production optimization, process safety, as well as we look after operational integrity. So we're here again to make sure we keep all the fields that is already developed, operated assets, running efficiently. Yeah.
Now the industry is international, but you agree with me that Ghana is different from the North Sea. That's right. How do you hope to, adapt to Ghana's situation?
Yeah, because these ski sets have been developed and tested all over the world. The Scottish ski set developed from the North Sea serves the whole world. We serve North America, Africa, West Africa, even in Nigeria, other places. So the same ski set will be tailored to Ghana oil and gas. As you know, oil and gas ski set cuts across globe. Ghana is not separated. You use the same ski set we have already developed.
All right. Now, I'm coming back to you, Andy. You have been in Ghana for some time. Yes. Now, what have you identified as some of the weaknesses in Ghana's policy, and for which you think that some changes could be made to improve the sector?
Well, actually, again, one of the reasons we are here is because we are impressed with the way the Ghanaian oil and gas industry is developing the industry here. And you'll always find faults with a policy if you look hard enough, but I think you'll actually find that Ghana's reputation in the oil and gas world in Africa, as well as in West Africa as well as East Africa, is actually quite high. And indeed, you will find several African nations looking to model themselves, who also have emerging oil and gas industries too, who want to model themselves on the model that Ghana is developing. So rather than look for perhaps negatives, we see so many positives here, which is why we put our office here.
Okay. Now, Andy, what about the issue of the business climate in Ghana? What do you think, or how do you think that this climate currently pertaining in Ghana can accept your situation in Scotland?
Well, the business situation, I mean, certainly by the meetings that we've held with professional agencies here, the operating environment seems to be fairly sensible. I think from a government institution in Scotland, the ease of doing business here, you know, very much with the kind of the government agencies is easy to happen, and we have vast experience of working with different governments across the world in terms of that technical and vocational education. One of the things that I would say though that I've noticed is there tends to be, and it's not just specific to Ghana, is there seems to be in education an emphasis from the top down. Right. So you know the focus very much being on professional engineers, perhaps who've studied abroad, etc., and then you know come back to Ghana and working in some of the operators. What I would like to see is a kind of a two-pronged approach, and very much a top-down but bottom-up. And there's a focus on the technical skills. Right. The opportunities for the technical operators is vast. That for me is one of the ways that the Ghana economy can flourish and really monetize the assets that they have here.
All right, so thank you so much for your time, and it's been good having you here, especially in Ghana, maybe for the first time, you. But
Second time, yeah.
I hope you enjoy your stay in Ghana. Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a delegation, part of the delegation from Scotland to explore oil and gas opportunities here in Ghana. And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of The Marketplace. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abwaji. We have a great afternoon.